Fred and Rosemary West. Frederick Walter Stephen West, born September 29th, 1941. Rosemary Pauline West, born November 29th, 1953. Rosemary met Fred West, who was 12 years her senior. In spite of the way he treated her, Rosemary's father strongly objected to her seeing Fred, and even went to the trailer park where they lived with his 2 daughters and threatened him. While Fred did several stints in jail for thefts and also failures to pay his fines for previous offenses, Rosemary became pregnant with his child, a girl named Heather, and took care of his children on her own. Because of her temper problems and her resentment about caring for children who weren't hers, she often treated her de facto stepdaughters badly. In the summer of 1971, Rosemary apparently snapped completely and killed Charmaine. After severing the body's fingers and toes, Fred buried it under their kitchen floor. In August of 1971, Catherine Reina Costello, Fred's ex-wife, disappeared when she came looking for Charmaine. Because her body was found to have its fingers and toes cut off when it was discovered, Fred is suspected to have been the killer. Though they married on January 29, 1972, Fred encouraged Rosemary to have sex with other men, both for money and for fun, and often watched her through a peephole. He also took erotic photos of her and posted them in swinger magazines as ads for prostitution. In June of 1972, they had another daughter together, Mae West. In order to make room for their expanding family and Rosemary's business, they moved to 25 Cromwell Street, where they carried out their rapes and murders. Rosemary continued working as a prostitute from their home in a room filled with peepholes for Fred to use and a red light outside that would be lit to tell children not to enter. Over the following years, she gave birth to 7 more children, of which 3 were fathered by Fred. Another may have been conceived by Rosemary and her own father, who kept engaging in incest with her even after she gave birth to her 4 children. The other 3, who were of mixed race, were all fathered by her clients. In October 1972, Fred and Rosemary hired a young woman named Carolyn Owens to work for them as a nanny for their children. They kept making sexual advances on her, but she declined every time. One night in December, after they both unsuccessfully tried to seduce her, she tried to leave only to be held captive overnight. When Fred threatened to let some of his friends have her, and that he would then kill her, she complied. The next day, she was released, though she pressed charges. Fred was able to convince the court that the act she was forced into had been consensual. So he and Rosemary were instead only fined $50 for indecent assault. Over the next 6 years, they killed at least 8 young women who made their way to 25 Cromwell Street, as lodgers or employees together. The first was Linda Gaug, a seamstress the Wests knew personally. Next was Caroline Ann Cooper, who disappeared while walking home from a movie theater. In December, Lucy Catherine Parrington disappeared from a bus stop while on her way home after Christmas. She was murdered by Fred and Rosemary, who abducted her, held her captive for a week over New Year, raped and tortured her, and then killed her. On January 3rd, Fred was treated for a laceration, which is believed to have been inflicted when he dismembered Parrington. From 1974 to 1979, 5 more women, Teresa Sinclair, Shirley Hubbard, Juanita Marin Mott, Shirley Ann Robinson, and Allison Chambers, met the same fate. It's unknown if the Wests killed more over the following years. If they did, which is not improbable, the bodies weren't buried on their property. Some of the girls are known to have been abducted, raped, and then released. While committing murders, Fred also sexually abused Annie Mary West, his daughter from his relationship with Reina Costello. She eventually became pregnant, but the pregnancy had to be terminated because it occurred in her fallopian tube. When she left home, he started abusing Heather West, who was conceived by Rosemary and possibly her own father, and one of his own daughters, Mae West. Fred disposed of the victims by burying them under the garage of the house or in the garden. To cover up the frequent burials, he pretended to be doing regular home improvement in order to afford the supplies he needed. He frequently stole and fenced the loot. Even though he was often brought to the police's attention for this reason, his killings went unnoticed. The couple came close to being exposed in 1986, when Heather told her friends about the abuse she suffered. In June of the next year, Fred and Rosemary strangled her to death to silence her. She was then dismembered and buried in the garden. The Wests were finally exposed in May 1992, when Fred videotaped himself raping one of his daughters. When she told her friends, one of them reported the Wests to the police. The investigating officer, Hazel Savage, had heard of Fred while he was in a relationship with Raina Costello. When another girl raped by Fred came forward, the police obtained a search warrant. In August, they searched the house for evidence of child abuse. Fred was arrested for rape and sodomy of a minor, and Rose was arrested as an accomplice. While they were being processed, their younger children were placed in the care of the government. While Fred was in custody, Rosemary became depressed and even attempted suicide once, but was saved by one of her sons. Unfortunately, the rape case fell apart when the victims backed out. Meanwhile, Savage became increasingly suspicious of the West past, the disappearance of Heather, and the results of the interviews of the West children. Especially that they had been threatened by Fred. They would be buried under the patio like Heather. She was able to obtain another search warrant to have the property dug up. The task was simplified when Fred confessed to Heather's murder in custody. When human bones started to crop up, Fred confessed to having committed the murders alone in order to protect Rosemary. However, he would not admit to raping any of his victims, saying that he wanted to have sex with them. Soon enough, the bodies of Anne McFall and Charmaine West turned up as well. Seeking to protect herself, Rose cut off all contact with her husband. On December 13th, 1994, he was charged with a total of 12 murders. On New Year's Day, he hanged himself in his cell at Winslow Green Prison with a knotted bedsheet. His body was cremated, and his funeral unattended except for 5 of his children. Rose was also put on trial in the end, first for a rape, but then for murder as well. She never confessed to any murders, and the evidence against her was largely circumstantial. An important witness was Janet Leach, Fred's appropriate adult, who revealed that Fred had told her that Rose had been involved in the murders and even killed Charmaine West and Shirley Robinson on her own. On November 22nd, 1995, Rose was found guilty of 10 murders and sentenced to life in prison. She will never be released. Though she maintains her innocence, she announced in 2001 that she will not try to appeal her conviction. In 1996, 25 Cromwell Street was completely demolished, and the site turned into a pathway.